Like this, I want you to meet Tom Lester, who is Ebb from Green Acres. Brother, it's just a joy
Thank you.
and a pleasure to have you here.
It's good to be with you.
I want to thank you right now in front of everybody for your support of our banquet. It made us have a real great time, and it was a great success.
Well, thank you. I thought it was a really good banquet. We had a good time praising the Lord, didn't we?
Yeah, praise God.
That's neat.
Tell me about that scene we just watched. Did you really marry that gal?
Oh, no. She was a girl that I had seen at a little place called The Horn. And that's where Jim Neighbors was discovered, and Vicky Carr. And they were looking for a girlfriend to play that part from on our show. And I just happened to be down there one night, and I saw her entertaining. I thought she was really neat. And I had met her before in another situation. And so when they began to have people come in to read for the part, I told our casting director that I had a girl I'd like for them to at least try out for the part. And so sure enough they did, and she came in, and they really liked her. And so we had a lot of fun.
Praise God.
Yeah, we had a
Was it fun making that program?
Yeah, it really was. It was, the interesting thing is of course I'm from Laurel, Mississippi, and my granddaddy and grandmother lived in a farm area, a community called Volsburg, Mississippi. And my granddad had a farm. It was about 200 acres. And so on the weekends and then during the summertime, I always spent up there with my granddaddy on the farm picking cotton and milking the cows and all that sort of thing. And so it's really amazing that here I would feel led of the Lord to go to Hollywood, California to become an actor. And the show that I wound up on was a farm show. And of course all the people on there, pardon me, all the people on Green Acres and Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction, because we were all done on the same lot, were all very dear, wonderful people. And so we just had a really, really happy family. And a lot of the things that people in our part of the country back here who are not in Hollywood hear of actors and that sort of thing, and feel like that maybe some actors, or they read that some of them are stuck up and won't sign autographs and all that sort of thing. That was not true at all with the people on Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, and Green Acres. We were all just one big happy family, and everybody loved one another, and we worked together really good. And I think you could tell that by watching our shows and seeing the kind of shows that we had. And of course we had really good writers and men that had real character. Mr. Paul Henning and Mr. Jay Summers, and these men, they wanted to produce television shows that the American public really loved and wanted in their home and this sort of thing. And they had a certain set of standards that they went by. And I think that's what's missing a little bit in our television industry today.
Why is it that a program of that caliber isn't shown anymore? Can you know the real reason for it?
Well, I know the reasons that I've heard. I'll give you the reason that they told us why they canceled all the country shows. If folks watching, and you probably remember, they seemed to cancel all their country shows at one time. No, one year they canceled Petticoat Junction, and then the very next year they canceled Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, Mayberry RFD, and Mayberry RFD was in the top 10 every week, and Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres was in the top 20 every week, and sometimes in the top 10. And so we had a very high rating. But they said that we were not reaching the age group from 17 to 35, and the network said that that's the age group that's buying the majority of the products. But as I travel around and all across the country, and I'm somewhere almost every weekend in a different part of America, all the folks I know between 17 and 35 were watching the shows, and a lot of those people are young families. You know, they've just gotten married, been married 2, 3, 4 years, they're in their 20s, and they've got children at home, and they were watching Green Acres, it seemed to me, more than anybody. Now, they might have some statistics that say that that age group is not watching the show, but, you know, I don't know exactly where they get those statistics. And anyway, what about all the folks above 35?
Yeah.
And what about all the ones below 17?
Yeah, right on.
Do we just disenfranchise them? But
well, they don't spend any money.
Well, there's a lot of folks below 17 spend a lot of money, and above 35. Sure they do.
Bet.
And but I think basically what happened was that the television networks were gearing away from that type of entertainment. Because, all right, for instance, now you take Mr. Paul Henning, who created, produced, and wrote Beverly Hillbillies. And when Beverly Hillbillies came out, it was in the top, well, it was #1 in the nation for week after week after week. And it was on for 9 years. And really, you might say that Beverly Hillbillies helped to make CBS the network that it is. And so he created and produced and wrote Beverly Hillbillies. He created and produced Petticoat Junction. He was executive producer on Green Acres, and he wrote, I believe, 2 of Doris Day's movies, and he wrote the George Burns Gracie Allen Show, and created, produced, and wrote the Bob Cummings Show. And I could go on and on about Mr. Henning's ability not only as a comedy writer, but as a comedy producer. And so now the networks won't buy any of his new ideas. And take Mr. Summers on our show, Jay Summers, and he wrote with Dick Chevrolet. And, of course, they wrote Green Acres week after week after week. A lot of the television shows that you see today on the air, they have a different writer every week. Well, you just think about the talent that a man must have to be able to, week after week for 6 years, to write a television show week after week. So that's an extreme amount of talent. And Mr. Summers, I've sat with him, you know, for the last 8 years since Green Acres has been canceled. We've talked about television and where it's headed today. And they won't buy any of his shows either. But yet what's amazing is they buy these other shows by people who don't have near the experience that he does. And I say this in a kind sort of way, but just as a fact, as a matter of fact. Young writers and all who have not proven themselves like these men have it all, and they buy their products, they stay on 2 weeks and they're canceled.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen shows being canceled so fast? They come on, they stay on 2, 3, 4 weeks, and then they're canceled.
Yeah, the world doesn't even know what it wants anymore.
Well, you know, I think the world knows what it wants, but I think the networks don't know what the world wants. You understand? I think what's basically happening, and you know, everything I say as a Christian, I want people to understand that I say in love. But I think basically that either one or two things are happening. Either the men who are in positions of responsibility in our networks today, either they're wanting the American public to watch just what they want them to watch, or they basically don't really know what the American people want. And I think that's true also, because I believe that they sit in their offices and they determine what the American people want to see, and they're not out there where the people are. Listen, I'm in a different church almost every weekend. I'm in crusades, I'm at fairs, I'm where people are, talking to them, and everywhere I go, people say, well, we just about quit watching television, and we're watching all the old reruns of Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, Mayberry RFD, the Andy Griffith Show, Gomer Pyle, and all those shows.
Right.
And so people are crying out for this kind of entertainment, and the networks are not giving it to them.
Well, brother, what is it that age group from 17 to 35, according to the networks, wants to see?
Shows like Mork and Mindy, Alice, what's the one, Laverne and Shirley, Happy Days, those kind of shows. And Happy Days is a fairly good show, but you know, some of the others, I believe that they feel like that age group wants to watch, I think, are very questionable television shows.
Right.
Dallas.
See, I don't know any of these programs.
Okay, Dallas. I don't think Dallas should be on the air.
Really? Is that bad?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. When we make entertainment out of adultery, fornication, homosexuality, we make entertainment out of sins like this, I don't think this is good for the American public to see, for the family. I don't think there's anything binding in that. I don't think there's any unity involved in that. And see, what's happening is we're becoming so calloused as a people because of what we're watching that sin is becoming normal.
Mm-hmm.
And the one who takes a stand against sin is the one that's made out to be a hate monger and abnormal. And so all the media, the majority of the media, is geared towards making sin normal. And so therefore many people, without really thinking, I believe really thinking for themselves, they watch those kind of shows, they watch the media, and they say, well, you know, maybe they're right. And that's what's so bad, because we never see the other side. So many times you'll see a biased program on one side, but you never see the other side.
Mm-hmm.
See, I was watching a show this morning where they had a lesbian on there, and she was talking about a book that had been written, and she said the main thrust of this book was that homosexuality is a very normal lifestyle, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. And the lady who was interviewing her seemed to agree with her 100%. And they were laughing and talking about homosexuals, and that there was nothing wrong with that at all. And but they don't have the other side come in. They don't have you come in there, for instance, or some other minister, and show them in God's Word where homosexuality is a sin. And
when we do, we get in trouble.
oh, sure. And if see, that's what's interesting. See, if we talk about the fact that it's a sin, and you know, I think we as Christians should let the world know what sin is, because I think that's what God requires of us. But it's not that we're putting anybody down, but we're just stating facts. And we're also telling the world, which I think is wonderful, is that, hey, what you're involved in is sin, and it's not going to bring you real purpose in life. Oh, you can stay involved in that, and there's fun in sin for a season, but sooner or later it's going to destroy your life. And so what we're telling them is that this is sin, and it'll destroy your life. But the wonderful thing is that God will forgive that sin, and He'll cleanse you of that sin, and He'll forgive you and forget your sin and clear your conscience and give you a purpose in life.